Welcome to the Circular Economy Show by the MacArthur Foundation, where we develop and promote the idea of a circular economy, engage key actors in the system to make it happen, and mobilise system solutions at scale. And this is episode 50 of the Circular Economy Show. A year and a half ago, when we started the show, we could hardly imagine that we got to episode 50. And we thought we'd do something a little bit different for episode 50. So we're going to be reflecting back on 50 episodes of the Circular Economy Show, looking at some of the highlights and meeting some of the people who have made it happen. One of the topics we started with at the start of 2021 was the topic of policy. We had an episode on the launch of the Universal Policy Goals, an episode on the Latin American Circular Economy Coalition, and it's been a topic that's cropped up throughout the 50 episodes of the Circular Economy Show, from actors at a national level, city level, local level, international institutions. So let's hear from a few of those people now.
Institutions, governments and cities play a crucial role in creating the conditions for a circular economy to emerge and thrive. But why is policy so key to bringing the circular economy to scale?
Well, policy is important because voluntary commitments and relying on the willingness of certain actors to move faster than others is great and really necessary, but in order to get scale, that alone won't do the trick. So we need alignment, and remember also that the current model, really all the policy is hardwired for and by the linear model.
As governments and industries around the world move towards a circular economy, it's key to align ambitions and create a common direction of travel. The MacArthur Foundation set out 5 universal circular economy policy goals that provide a framework for national governments, cities, and businesses to create a transition that fosters innovation and decouples growth from finite resource consumption and environmental degradation. These goals are: stimulate design for a circular economy, manage resources to preserve value, make the economics work, invest in innovation, infrastructure, and skills, and foster collaboration for systems change. Alignment and collaboration among policymakers that work at different governance levels is crucial. They all have roles to play, with city governments pioneering solutions, national governments setting the direction, and at the international level, building unprecedented collaboration with coalitions and alliances among countries and regions. Up next, you will hear from some of the critical conversations we've had in the Circular Economy Show on the role of policy in creating the conditions for a circular economy to scale.
We see city governments and cities as crucial first movers in the transition to a circular economy. And that's firstly because most of our urban centres deal with the majority of the challenges of our current linear system. Cities consume 75% of the world's natural resources, they generate 50% of solid waste, and they emit 80% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions.
There's a real energy going on in cities in these current decades. There's something about cities. Is it that they're the right size, that they can make a difference, but they're not so big that people can't connect? And also a lot of creating economic transformation happens in the way we lay out our streets, in the way we move materials around. So there's something about the spatial scale of a city that can try out new things. How can your city be a home to thriving people in a thriving place while respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet?
Making it place-based, and that does require, I think, national governments who typically move at a slower pace to allow cities the space, the money, the flexibility to start delivering this stuff on the ground at pace and at scale, because we can do, given the tools to allow us to do that.
Exam producer responsibility is a game changer, in the sense that it creates a market that doesn't exist beforehand. It's one of the few solutions that have such a significant, or have the potential to have a significant impact and help to foster circular economy markets.
What would it look like if we actually got the right business models, the right type of policies in the first place, there would probably be less need actually for the philanthropies, but also less need for redistributive policies, which unfortunately take up a lot of the kind of brain space of governments. They should really be thinking together with business on how to create better value, not just pick up the mess afterwards when we create all this inequality or, problems in the environment.
Circular economy has to look at the region and not only national territories, because at the end of the day, for countries in particular in the Caribbean, that also has implications of cooperation, trade, etc.
I firmly believe that you cannot do it only through bottom-up or through top-down. The most important thing is to understand that the change to the sustainable economy in society is unavoidable. And we should stop talking about if, what, but rather how we will do it. Because that's the task which is currently on our table, being a citizen, being a public policy maker, or being a businessman.
So Lara, for the 2% of our audience who don't already recognise you, tell us a little bit about what you do as part of the Circular Economy show.
Thank you, Seb. So I am Laura, and I am, I would say, the program manager of the Circular Economy show. So that means looking at the production of our episodes, managing the team, the amazing team that we have behind the cameras. And also, I am one of the regular hosts, as some people might recognize me from other episodes. And yeah, it just means leading, or let's say managing the production of the content and also developing the stories that we tell across the Circular Economy show in different formats.
And this was an idea that we kind of concocted shortly after the first COVID-19 enforced lockdown in the UK. Do you remember how, where we kind of came from and how we came up with the idea?
Yeah. Let me take us a little bit back when we had a great program called the Disruptive Innovation Festival, which was an online event that we would run every year in November for about 3 weeks. And we would have amazing conversations in the studio. We would have literally hundreds of conversations across these 3 weeks. And I think with time, we recognized that there was a lot of value in bringing regularly content to our audience. So we decided we needed to make some transformations to the program. And if I can highlight some of these changes, I would say, well, we changed the frequency a lot. From running once a year, we went to running it 3 times a year, to running it every month, to now having it every other week or every week even in some cases. We also changed the format of the show and the ways in which we tell the story. So we went from only having conversations in the studio, like the one we're having right now, to also testing this kind of TV show format where we have videos, where we narrate conversations, where we have filming happening in different locations.
The way I kind of sum up that transition is that we've gone from events to basically an online TV show for the circular economy, which is also responding to people's demand for circular economy content. People are beginning to uncover this idea and are trying to find out what it means for them, what they can do with it. And obviously that's what we're trying to respond to with much of the broadcast content that we put out. This is episode 50 of the Circular Economy show, basically a year and a half after we started it. What are one or two of the headline learnings that you've personally taken from this effort?
Yeah, I mean, there are many. Of course, we've had 50 episodes, and also we had, I think, 5 more for the fashion show that we ran last year.
You're saying this technically isn't episode 50?
Exactly.
Show. Oh,
I guess it would technically be 56th episode. But yeah, we've come a long way, and I would say, I mean, the reason why I like this job, Seb, is because one week I am talking to designers about how to basically transform the fashion industry. And then the next week, I'm preparing a video that talks about the role of policy in scaling the circular economy. So completely different topics, completely different people with different ambitions, different jobs. And it's all very exciting. And I think, well, I hope that people that when they watch the circular economy show, they can walk away with a sense of hope, because there are people trying to solve the problem. And as a young person or a young professional, I think it's quite challenging sometimes at the moment to kind of focus on these problems, because the conversation can feel overwhelming and negative. But if you watch these conversations and you see that people are trying and actually actively working on it, that is great.
And we're solutions orientated, right? And that's what we're doing. We're trying to use this platform to give people a sense of the possibility, a sense of the opportunity. And although it covers lots of topics, as you say, like this circular economy is the kind of common guiding principles that are driving that solutions conversation.
Exactly. And the circular economy, it is happening. We want it to happen everywhere, and we want it to scale. And for that, we need people to push us and to challenge the idea, and we need to bring more voices. We need to bring more perspectives, and I hope that people that watch the Circular Economy show, that leave comments, that ask us questions that get us to think further and how the next challenges that the circular economy narrative has to face.
Final question for you, Lara, before I let you go. What's been your, as you said at the start, you've hosted many of the episodes of the Circular Economy Show. What's been your personal highlight? I know, for instance, that you got to speak to Kate Raworth, who's the author of the quite well-known book, at least in the sort of circular economy circles, Don't Economics.
Yeah, when I had the chance to speak to Kate Raworth, it was really a dream come true, because I also studied economics, and I can really relate to a lot of the things that she says that economic students go through. So for me, it was a really important moment. I decided to study economics to try to understand the current economic model and challenge it. And I actually was a little bit disappointed from that, because I didn't hear about the circular economy or any of these kind of new narratives and thinking. And I also didn't get a chance to learn about, for example, women that had studied economics, or people from other, let's say, regions apart from Europe or North America. So for me, having the chance in the Circular Economy Show to bring this diversity of perspectives, to have people like Mariana Mazzucato, Kate Raworth, Catherine Trebeck, I think we had back when we had the Disruptive Innovation Festival, Christiana Figueres, that is definitely one of the highlights. The other thing I would say is that a lot of the speakers that we have, they come to talk to us about what they are doing in the circular economy world. But I think the people that I can remember, the conversations that I remember, are those who bring also their personal stories and their personal motivations to the conversation, and that they speak about the future in this kind of ambitious and courageous, yet humble and hopeful way.
Lara, I want to thank you for all your hard work, and thank you for flipping roles and being a guest on this 50th episode of the show. And obviously we'll see you in the next 50 episodes.
Thank you, Seb.
Another topic that regular viewers of the Circular Economy Show will be extremely familiar with is design. We talk about the 3 principles of a circular economy: eliminate waste and pollution, circulate products and materials, and regenerate natural systems, as all being fundamentally driven by design. And when we talk about design, we're talking about the bigger idea of design, not just design practitioners, but a swathe of people who are involved in design decisions that effectively shape the economy. So let's take a look at some of the conversations we've had over the last 18 months.
Everything around us has been designed. Our buildings, clothes, food systems, and transport networks have all been designed. Yet we fail to implement intelligent design. 80% of material flows are destined for landfill. This represents hugely wasteful and inefficient industries. Of course, once these wasteful designs are implemented, it is hard to reverse. As the common saying goes, you can't unscramble an omelette. Can we design differently? Absolutely. Circular design involves intelligent design, thinking about the design of products and systems beyond just the point of sale by looking at their full life cycle. The circular economy is underpinned by circular design. Let's take a look at some of the design examples we have explored.
The circular economy idea is really mobilized now. More and more people are talking about it, and thousands of designers and creative people, innovators from either by themselves or in small or large companies, they're all trying stuff out, which is amazing. But not all circular design efforts are equal. And I think actually we sell the concept a bit short if we think that they are.
Okay, so you're using waste in your product. What happens when your product becomes waste? And a lot of them would sort of say, oh, well, it's not going to, because I've designed it to last for ages and ages and ages. You know, it's going to be handed down through generations. And my question is always, okay, and then what? What happens in, say, 500 years' time when your beautiful heirloom table is no longer of use? And that was a question that not all of them had fully resolved yet.
Add the idea around circular design to the idea around democratic design, it even makes the product even better, even more valuable.
You need to look at the whole thing. So we know that the choices we make when we're designing a product have an impact. Something like 80% of the product's total environmental impact comes from the decisions which are made during the design phase. So it does require kind of detailed thinking at the product level, but also to understand the context of use throughout the life of this product as well.
When we have that mindset shift, because I think actually designing for regenerative impact starts with a mindset shift, not just with a set of practices. When we have that mindset shift and then we empower those 160 million designers, that's when we can see a very rapid shift of the system. So that is also what makes me hopeful.
So Rob, you're one of the lead producers on the Circular Economy show, but I wonder if you could say a little bit about what inspires you about the idea of a circular economy.
What inspires me about the idea of a circular economy is all the innovations that we've seen popping up. So we have it at the product level with Nopla's Uhu capsules. We have it at the digital platforms with Reaply, who are providing a platform so organisations can find value in their underutilised assets. What I really get excited about is the business model level. So we've seen Sojo, a company based in London, who help link seamsters with customers who can repair their items, prevent them from going to waste. In terms of linking that to the CE show, what I really enjoy is being able to research these innovators, ask them if they want to be on the show, and then have an in-depth chat with them about their innovations and how they are linking to the circular economy.
And business innovation is common in your story, right? I know that you went to University of Exeter and you looked at the kind of business opportunity of a circular economy quite tangibly in the research you did there and the studying you did there. Another thing that I know interests you, and I think this also links to your dissertation, is food and agriculture. And recently you had the opportunity to take part in a very special episode of the Circular Economy show where you actually went to a farm that is modelling a very different kind of agriculture and also a very kind of different kind of relationship between agriculture and food products. This was Farm Ed in the west of England, and it was I think episode 40-something of the show. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the experience of recording live in that environment and the extra value we get from being able to go on site. Sure. So that filming in itself was quite an adventure. We've had however many episodes, 40-odd episodes, all on Zoom, and then we... This is episode 50 of the show, by the way, Rob, so we've literally had 50 episodes. But the Farm Ed episode was, 42, 43, 42? So we'd had up to 40 all on Zoom, and then this was the first one of actually getting out and going face-to-face in so long. It was a very early ferry off the islands to mainland, train up to Cotswolds, get there, and it's quite a challenge. You've got this whole new setup, no idea really what's going on, and you have Chantel in the kitchen, live cooking, you have 4 guests who are going to be rotating round, and so it's quite a recipe for disaster. But everything went really well, all was one take, and the value that we got was that it's just a really nice alternative setup. So this is a beautiful studio, but the audience, I'm sure, love to have a bit of a change of scene every so often. And the value that we gained was that we also were lucky enough to have a tour around Farm Ed. So Ian Wilkinson, founder of Farm Ed, took us along with some of his colleagues to see all the different practices they have on the farm. So we saw the regenerative wheat that was being grown against the traditional wheat, and you can really see the difference between the two. So the traditional is quite clean cut, industrialized, whereas the regenerative, a little bit
wonky, you might say. They're not quite the same height, not standardised. You can also see that there's clover growing underneath the regenerative wheat, whereas the soil for the traditional wheat is just barren. It's just dusty, crumbles in your hand, and it's just nowhere near as nice as the regeneratively grown wheat.
And what you're describing there is actually that sense of being able to see these things in action, which I guess is very powerful when you're trying to produce episodes of a broadcast or content that's trying to convey to people what it's all about. I have one behind-the-scenes question I want to know. Did you, because you mentioned Chantal cooking in the kitchen and people would have seen it, did you get to taste the flatbreads?
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Rob, thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for your hard work, and I'm sure we're going to see much more of you in 2022.
Cheers, Seb.
Perhaps a newer topic here at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation is the role the circular economy plays in tackling the climate crisis and reversing biodiversity loss. And that we've really launched that through two publications, a 2019 paper called Completing the Picture that looked at the climate story, and a paper more recently called The Nature Imperative on biodiversity loss. And so it's been a big topic for us throughout the course of 2021. And let's hear from some of the people who have been offering perspectives on the critical role the circular economy can play in tackling these big global challenges.
Our linear take, make, waste economy is one of the leading causes of climate change. A lot of the efforts made to address this global challenge have focused on transitioning to renewable energy, but this will solve only half the problem. The circular economy can help us tackle the other half by transforming how we make and use materials, products, and food. How? Well, let's go through the 3 principles. By eliminating waste and pollution, we reduce the emissions associated with the production of the materials that go to waste. By keeping products and materials in use, we retain the embodied energy in products and materials instead of producing new materials which generate greenhouse gases. By regenerating natural systems, we store and retain carbon in the soil, where it also helps build soil health. Through the circular economy, we can build an economy that's fit for a thriving climate. Now let's look at some of the climate content we've covered in the show.
It really struck me that so much of the climate conversation is about switching to renewables and energy efficiency, which is obviously absolutely vital. That we understand that, everybody understands that. But then there's the kind of the 45%, which is about how we make products, how we use products. That could be, cars or phones or food systems. They have a massive implication towards climate change, and yet in the conversation that part doesn't seem to be illustrated as well. There's this, the energy transition, we get it, we're on it, we're transforming, but there's a massive potential there. And when we looked at the numbers, looking at steel, cement, plastic, food systems and aluminium, and switch those to circularity, about half that 45% could be tackled with that. So we feel incredibly optimistic that there's this great opportunity through shifting to circularity to work towards climate targets.
And I am, thoroughly delighted that you all are pushing on this, because to be perfectly honest, we are still at the point in which most of the effort and most of the focus and most of the financing is going toward how do we produce X? How do we produce energy? How do we produce transport? How do we produce food? And so we're still very much caught into this linear thinking and still caught in chapters 1 and 2 of that linear thinking, right, which is extraction and use. And we haven't closed the loop to figure out, and then what happens? Once you produce the solar panel, once you produce the wind turbine, once you produce the electric vehicle, and then what? And it's that and then what that we're not focusing on yet, right? We're going at this and addressing climate and emissions very much from a linear economy perspective without fast forwarding our thinking to the end of that linear and then asking, the very difficult question, then what happens?
This is the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Circular Economy Cafe, located in the New York Times Climate Hub space here in Glasgow at COP26. It's a hub of conversations about the role the circular economy can play in tackling the climate crisis.
We're really rooted in this idea of driving regenerative business in a circular economy. this is all key at the end of the day. And the way we see it is it all comes down to materials and the implication of different materials in different contexts.
Everything comes from somewhere, and in those places, the natural resources, the impact of climate, and the impact on people's day-to-day lives are so intertwined, right? Every product is someone's livelihood. Every resource that gets turned into something came from nature. So there's really no way actually to not connect them. And I think we've been missing the conversation for so long by not really thinking in this more robust way. So for us, at the core of all of that is if we put economics, environment, and people, then you really get to different sets of solutions and different sets of ideas.
We need to, do a big trick, which is economic development within planetary boundaries, within the safe operating space. The only way to do that is to ensure that economic development stays within finite budgets. So of course, the linear economic model we have today, where you just exploit, add value, and then create waste, is not going to take us to the future. The future must be circular. The future must be more regenerative. It must be more restorative.
Okay, Maya, so you are the newest member of the Circular Economy Show production team. You joined us at the beginning of last year, actually during one of the lockdowns during the pandemic. What's that experience been like?
Well, thanks, Seb. I think the experience has been one of really thinking about what resilience means in one's personal life and what it means at a broader scale, for example, in our team. And I think the pandemic has really shown, for me, how people are resilient and can be resilient if they choose to, especially when organizing in teams and trying to figure out how best to operate in ambiguity.
And that's interesting in the context of then the subject matter that we've been pushing out on the Circular Economy Show as well, because in many ways, one of the ways which we talk about circular economy is that it's a more resilient model for the future.
Exactly. So not only are we thinking about how to be resilient in supply chains and in global systems and the economy in general, but also in our own social everyday life, comings and goings. So yeah, it has been a very interesting time to join.
I've certainly enjoyed working with you even more since we've been able to see each other in person, which obviously was a challenge in the early days of COVID-19. And what motivated you as an individual to take on a role as part of the Circular Economy Show?
I think joining the team was a really good way for me to learn more about the circular economy, which I personally believe is a good alternative to the current economic system we have, which is harmful to the environment, which has in many ways directly and indirectly led to the cause of ecological collapse, climate change, and very many different social inequalities. So I think for me, putting my energy and focus into this space where we have a circular economy really addresses those things in different ways. So I think that's really what motivated me to join.
And I also know that you're quite passionate about kind of art and storytelling. And in the past, you've been, actively now, and you're involved in making films and broadcasts, and you did that prior to joining this team. I slightly, I'm not sure that everyone would agree with this. I think of the Circular Economy Show as a form of art. I wonder if you could say a bit about and I also know you're very passionate about issues you just said, climate change, tackling climate crisis. For you, what's the importance of things like art and storytelling in creating the kind of positive changes that you want to see?
So I think one of the largest crises synonymous to the climate crisis has been one of communication. So I think we have a lot of information out there. We have very many different thinkers and talents and people working in this space on how to change the system that we currently are embedded in right now. But I think one thing that hasn't been done as well is communicating. And I think there's a large gap and lots of opportunity in that space. So I think with storytelling gives the opportunity for people to interact with different ideas and concepts that they wouldn't have otherwise. And when you're telling a story, you're not giving only facts and figures. You're not only appealing to someone's head necessarily, you're also appealing to their worldviews and their heart. So I feel like storytelling really helps us connect the head and the heart in many different ways to convey different messages that need to be told and need to be told to people from seemingly different backgrounds and walks of life. So I think that's where really storytelling and the circular economy merge so well to kind of like push us forward to the next stage, which is allowing people to understand the concept and move towards it.
I couldn't agree with that more strongly. And actually, we were recently having a conversation about COP26, and I know you followed that event very closely. I had a chance to be there for a few days, and one of my dominant reflections, and perhaps it's gradually getting better, but the huge volume of content that is being broadcast and discussed in that venue is still very heavily on getting better at describing the problem, getting better at kind of more insightful on the challenges we face, and what still is not being heard strongly enough, not being pushed strongly enough, is what are the solutions? What are the big ideas? What are we aiming for? What are we working towards? And hopefully that's one of the kind of goals and ambitions of the project that we're doing here as well.
Exactly, and really trying to make them relevant to people. So telling people, this is relevant to you because of this is important because of this, and this is how it's connected, and making it not only a concept that is high level, but a concept that can be lived, and that's where storytelling comes in.
Maya, thanks for taking some time to share your story with us, and I'm sure we'll see you in 2022 on the Circular Economy Show.
Thanks, Seb.
That's it from us in 2021. We really thank you and appreciate so much the people who have been watching the episodes, who have been commenting on the various channels that we're broadcasting out from, and we truly hope that you'll join us again in 2022. If you are taking a break over the next few months, then enjoy that time. And as I said, hopefully you'll join us for more episodes of the Circular Economy Show next year.